Determined to lead, determined to make a difference, a sustainable difference. At the Polyteknisk Society, we've been striving to make a sustainable difference since 1852. But to be honest with you, there are quite a few men around. And it's such a pleasure to see all the women coming into the Polyteknisk Society and taking a lead towards the next phase of sustainable development. Nothing wrong with men, but we will also want all the leading women. That's why we're here today. Nada, you're such a leading woman. I had the pleasure of working with you some 10 years ago. And you had the guts to start the leadership or the digital leadership society of this network, which is already 5 years ago, but you should all join that as well. We are gathered here today to celebrate your first book, I would say. I can't wait for the second, actually, but one step at a time, yes. We got a bunch of leaders with us. A special thanks to Shestainability, who is sponsoring this event and make it happen downtown Oslo, and a special welcome to all of you registered online. First out will be Liv Monica Stubholt. I actually met you some 20 years ago, so you are sort of the proof of the pudding of female leadership. You are a reckoned lawyer. You're a partner of Selmer. You are busy doing, I would say, business development in both the energy and ocean space segments. I actually met you, I think you piloted the first private-public partnership on corporate social responsibility when you were state secretary. So on that, my name is Mette Eriksen. I am the Secretary General of the Polyteknisk Society. I'm wishing you all a really pleasant evening. Liv Monica, please.
Thank you very much, Mette, and delighted to meet all of you in the room and online. It is a pleasure today to have been asked to introduce Nada Ahmed. And I'm holding the book because I'm so proud of it. And I'm so proud of you. And I would like to introduce you by saying that when the epitaph is that it's a disruptive woman's guide to leadership, I have to say it's possible to be disruptive, innovative, without being brash or aggressive. And you epitomizes that, Nada, because you have shown that you're able to network, to develop, to overpass and surpass others without losing your sense of human kindness. And that's really the perspective I would like to highlight going in, because leadership is by many misunderstood to mean that you have to be aggressive, you have to be self-serving, or you have to be willing to push others aside. And it's really the opposite. You have to bring others up, you have to be gentle, and you have to be persuasive. Now, Nada is all of those things. She persuaded me 10 years ago to be somebody to support her in a career, and it's been an extremely easy job because you've done it all by yourself. Ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce Nada Ahmed.
Wow. Is my mic on? Can everyone hear me? Yeah. It is a mix of emotions to be standing here in front of all of you, people who've come from far and close, people that I've met over the past 10 years of my journey. So don't get uncomfortable if I shed some tears, because this is a very emotional moment. Thank you for... Liv Monica, for your wonderful introduction. So let me start by asking you a question. How many of you here have your dream job? I would say about 2/3 of the room. Or like 1/3. How many of you are working to get your dream job? So that's all of us. Well, let me tell you, I had a dream job. And it wasn't all that it's cracked up to be. This was a few years ago. I was walking my kids to school. It was a rare sunny day in Oslo. It was warm, and I was really trying to be present with my kids. As I had just gotten a new job. It was my dream job, but things hadn't gone exactly according to plan. It was a bit turbulent. But I was really trying to be present with my kids because these are important moments. So I'm like dropping them off, seeing them laugh. And on the way to work, I'm thinking about this very important meeting that I have with my boss. Because today I decided I was going to talk about some of the things that just weren't going well. And one of those things was that, I'd been in this role for a while, not that long, but like 6 months, and I knew I wasn't making as much as some of the other people in the team. I had hired in people, and especially new people coming in. I knew what we were paying them because they were reporting to me. So I was like, I'm going to bring this up, and I was going to talk to my boss about it. And I walk in the room, and I'm prepared, and I tell myself, now that you're going to be reasonable, you are not going to be a drama queen here. We women have to walk a fine line. And so I'm making my case, and she's pushing back, and I continue to make my case. And there's some point in the conversation that she stops me. And she says, Nada, look, I don't know you that well. I'm new in this role. You have to prove yourself to me. And in that moment, the air just got sucked from the room. And all my ambition, my desire, my excitement for this role just ceased to exist. Everything that defined me for that moment. And I don't even remember what happened afterwards. I just remember walking back home and her words just repeating in my head like a broken record. Nada, you have to prove yourself. And I was like, didn't I prove myself when I graduated from college? Didn't I prove myself when I got my first role? When I performed really well on that project and outperformed the expectations? When I got this role because I did something really well in my previous job? But then I started to ask myself, who am I proving myself to? What motivates me? And I realized for the past 10 years, I'm here trying to chase this dream job, but all I'm really trying to do, the only person that I'm really trying to prove myself to is myself. And I've won all the awards, and I've gotten all the positions that I wanted, that I ever dreamed of 15 years ago. And who's going to say stop? And I realized the only person to do that was myself. And that was my light bulb moment. I realized that I'm done proving myself. I have proved myself. And what would it look like if I started to lead from a space of, I don't need to prove myself anymore, that I'm worthy, that I'm deserving to be here, that I belong in this room. And that's what became the genesis of this book. It was kind of my mission so that all of us women could start leading from that place of knowing that we belong. Because I know there are many of you here who feel this, and I felt this too, who are brought into a role because we're different. Because we love your different perspectives, and we love that you're outspoken. But we tell you to be different, but not like that. We tell you to be bold, but not like that. We tell you to be outspoken, but not like that. And so in the end, I found that there were just too many pressures to conform. Everyone telling you to be somebody that you're not. You realize, no, that is not me. And I wanted to write a book for the disruptive women, for the women who are different, who feel different, who have different points of views and are ambitious and want to make an impact, but they keep on facing setbacks and challenges over and over again and not gloss over them. I know we have challenges, and I think it's important to talk about them, and I wanted to talk about them and be vulnerable in this book and talk about the challenges I've faced, because it doesn't help anybody when we pretend that it's all okay on the surface. And so this book was this process of being that voice for women to feel validated for the challenges that we have, but at the same time know that the only thing that matters, the one thing that you need to transform your career is that unshakable belief in yourself. Yes, we need allies and we need people to support you, but the one person you need unwavering support from is your own self. And that's kind of the journey that I've been on that has allowed me to stand in front of you and write this book. And I want each and every one of you to feel that. I want you to be inspired by this book and feel like you can move mountains, because you can. And I just want to end with this one quote that's often attributed to by Nelson Mandela, but it's actually written by a woman called Marianne Williamson. And she said that you need to manifest the glory inside of you. And it's not in some of you, it's in each and every one of you. And when you give yourself that permission to shine, you're unconsciously giving everybody else that same permission that they can also shine. So stop playing yourself small. Stop making yourself small just so that other people don't feel insecure around you. So we need you, and we need your voice, and we need to be you to be who you are. Thank you. And with that, so I would say thank you all who've bought the book. There's a bookmark in the book with a QR code for your Kindle version. So for today only, the Kindle version's for 99 cents. I want you all to go buy that one, because that allows you to write me a review on Amazon. So if you do want to write a review, any type of review, I'm open to feedback. Get the Kindle version today. It's an easy click. And with that, I want to welcome this amazing panel that I have with me today. These are 4 women that have had an immense influence and impact on my life here in Oslo, and I would like to welcome them on stage. First of all, Liv Monica Stubholt, who's been my mentor for almost 10 years, more than 10 years now. I would like to welcome Rita Hausken, who has been on this journey with me when really I started feeling the first turbulence in my career in 2018, and she's coached me through thick and thin. Thank you. The next person is Chisom Udeze. Am I pronouncing it? Udeze. She is, if you don't know her, is somebody you all need to get to know. She's on several boards. She has her own company, Diversify. She's the founder of Her Space, and she's a strong champion of diversity, equity, inclusion, and it works all around the globe. So Chisom, welcome on stage. I think you can sit here. And the last person needs no introduction here in Oslo, Anita Krohn Traaseth, who we all know as the former CEO of Innovation Norway, serves on many boards, is now also an entrepreneur with designing her own suits, and it's just been a big, big inspiration for me. Actually, when I wrote this book, I thought about Anita because in 2013, when she wrote her first book, Godt nok for de svina, and I went to listen to her, and I read that book, that was the motivation for me to start finding allies, to start finding mentors for myself, and really take responsibility for my career. Because no matter how many challenges we face, and yes, there are microaggressions, yes, there's discrimination, but at the end of the day, we all can take responsibility. So that's what you've taught me, Anita. Welcome on stage. So we're going to have some time for questions with Liv Monica. Because and I'm glad you touched on this in introduction, but when I got my dream job, my amazing leadership role that I was really proud of and really excited about, your biggest advice to me was, now you need to start thinking about your team's growth over your own growth. And that was a big epiphany for me. It was a time of deep reflection and introspection on what that meant. And I thought maybe we could start with you on what did you mean by that?
So I have the pleasure of being a partner in a large law firm in Norway, and we're a bit like a legal factory because every year between 8 and 10% of the people who join our firm as associates and junior lawyers, they move on to other jobs because that's how you learn to be a legal practitioner. In law school, you learn how to study, but to actually supply service and be attentive to your customer's need and fashion what legal advice, how that can be relevant to a commercial setting, that can only be learned and only taught in the law firms. So it became clear to me that I was not only there to provide legal service and advice to our clients, but at the same time to train people to do this well. And that was an epiphany to me as well, because if we are slightly driven people, then we're very focused on being able to succeed and after some time to be helpful. Those two are not necessarily always the same thing. But when you've come into we want to be helpful, there is actually just this short jump to what you and I talked about, how to make sure to fulfill the leadership responsibility of letting people grow and succeed, and particularly, Nada, people that are not the same as yourself. That's the hardest part.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And that was some learning that I had to kind of do the hard way when you become a leader. When I became a leader, I expected that everyone would have the same ambitions as me, and realizing, there are different things that are important to them. And I just want to maybe throw it back to you, Anita, because I know you also talk a lot about leadership, and I've also learned a lot from you. What was your journey like as you took on more and more leadership roles? How that transformed into being from being measured on doing individual contributor tasks to actually being a leader and helping other people grow?
I probably don't have a good answer on it because, I never had an ambition as a young girl to become a leader. Mm-hmm. It kind of just happened. So I reflected backwards more than I reflected forward. I think I was quite lucky with my first job, working for IBM in 1996. And this was a trainee job. And just being one of 14 being picked out, that's a very good platform. Also because you get the ability to learn and to be curious and to explore. And at that time also, we were 7 women and 7 men that were selected. So I came into the working space thinking, this is equal, The leadership was there during the whole week and picking out. And it took me probably 5 years before I understood. And I had to come up on a mid-management level to have that perspective. Because it's like Liv Monica told you, which was a very good advice. Before you are responsible for people, you build up your own kind of CV, you know, with results and everything. And working in the ICT industry, everything that mattered was results and the ability to close deals. And then gender was secondary. It didn't count. It was only the results that count. And then when you come at the management level, your job is to make the team perform. And you don't make the team perform by you being the best and doing everything yourself. It's not about you anymore. It's about you building up the other CVs. So I think it's been a journey. When I was approached for my first MD job, my first thought was, no, I'm not going to do that. And then my second thought that came quite quickly was, why should I say no when somebody actually believes that I can do it? So I should listen more to them than I should listen to myself. So I kind of I have the styggen på ryggen here, and then I have the opposite here too, because we always talk about styggen på ryggen, but there's other voices. So I made a choice quite early which one to listen to, and that is a choice. If you are physically and mentally healthy, as for example my mom was not, and I lost her at a very young age, I think I understand that I can make choices. That doesn't mean it's easy, but I'm extremely choice driven. I think the only thing that is 100% equal in this world is 24 hours a day. No matter what country, culture, age, whatever, you have 24 hours. I use my 24 hours. And that doesn't mean I'm effective 25 hours. I also can sleep, you know, 1/3 of the time and not feel bad. So I think that's a perspective. I think so. It's been a growing. It's been a growing thing, Nada, and it's been. I think, first of all, it's been, I feel blessed, really, really blessed by having all these opportunities. And again, it doesn't mean that it's not hard, but they are defining moments. And it's the defining moments who builds character. And if you see them as building character, and if you ask for advice, you don't have to be a superior human being, you know? And I've always have people to ask. I never stood alone in anything.
Right.
That has helped.
Yeah, and I think that's very inspiring, because it goes back to us also taking responsibility. But I think on that point, I also want to maybe pivot a little bit to you, Chisom, because I think often in Norway, the conversation is around, when we talk about diversity, it's around gender. Whereas now, in the past couple of months, as I've moved to a place that's definitely a lot more diverse than Norway, the conversation's a lot more advanced in terms of it's way more than gender that we're talking about here. And people who come from different ethnicities with immigrant backgrounds, people of color, people of different sexual orientation, you know, we think, oh, they probably face the same challenges as us. I think many of us don't realize that they have way more hurdles that they need to climb. So based on your experience, what do you see is kind of missing from the conversations that we're having around leadership and around giving people opportunities?
Right, thank you. Big question. I've been in Norway for 6 years, so I'm not an expert on this, just from personal experience and the work that I've had. I think like you, I come from 3 different countries in terms of nationalities and lived in 8 different countries. I think what I've noticed in Norway is that, yes, the focus is on gender, but not just gender, it's on homogeneous gender equality. So who's a cisgendered man and a cisgendered woman? And any efforts essentially to include women in leadership positions or in boards usually just settles around white women. And that is a privilege. Because if you can think about women and not think about intersectional women, you know, like trans women, black women, brown women, Asian women, that is a privilege. It's not something to be ashamed of. It's not something to feel guilty about. It just means that for the longest time, white women have been the norm. You know, and I kind of nuanced the story in talking about, I'm a love migrant to Norway, so my partner is Norwegian. And I remember when we first moved back here together and we're actively making friends, like most people do, you know, he would come home and say, I met an Asian guy today, or I met an Indian guy today. And then whenever he met a white man, because he was a white man, or he is a white man, he just met a man. And I thought, interesting, Kim. Why is everybody else something else before they're a man, and then a white man is just a man? So this is just how we're pre-programmed, you know, and it takes effort to actually start thinking from an intersectional perspective. I also made some notes of some things I want to say because I'm pregnant. I'm 2 weeks away from birth, so I have like pregnancy brain. But I think it's really important to focus on equity when we talk about gender equality, because without equity, we cannot arrive at equality. Like, equity is recognizing that even though we're all equal, we all need different things. You know, as you nuanced, even as leaders, you know, sometimes we think everyone needs the same thing as us. You know, Chisom and Nada, they need exactly the same thing, but we have different constraints. Even when we seem similar, right? Even two white women who look exactly the same need exactly different things. And we have to provide for those things that are needed. So I think oftentimes, even in Norway, if you notice, a lot of the leaders or CEOs who are people of color often have to build their own outfits. You know, they have to start from scratch, build their own companies, their own consultancies, and then they have to prove themselves over and over again before they start getting, you know, that space and that recognition. But I also recognize that, you know, for somebody like me, or for a lot of really great women of color I know, some of whom are here, you know, like I come from my mom is a very successful entrepreneur, industrialist in Nigeria. And so for me, the concept of leadership, when I imagined that, it was always like a woman, and it was always a black woman. And that as well is a privilege, right? Because I grew up with a mother who was a boss in every sense of the word. So for me, the idea that I would not be a leader, that I would not run companies, like, it did not exist. And also recognizing that that in itself is a privilege. But I think we also need to be aware that there needs to be a concerted effort to include women who don't look like us. And even for those of us who are people of color, how are we allies? And how do we open the door when, you know, not be gatekeepers, but let people in, and to do so intentionally? I think something else perhaps worth saying is that, you know, there is this idea that in some sense, including diverse perspectives or backgrounds or women in leadership might be in some sense settling for less. And it's not true, because that's fitting into the rhetoric that somehow I'm less skilled than my white friend. And that is not true. And we need to challenge that ideology. And of course, we live in Norway where, I mean, it is a largely homogeneous society. People like Nada and me are the minority, and that's the truth, just from a basis of numbers. But, you know, so you have to do a little bit more work, perhaps, to find me or to find her. But there are a lot of us out there, right? So it's like, how do we do this work together? But also, I think what you said, like, we have a responsibility. You know, when I moved here, I did not wait for any permission. You know, I didn't want somebody else to open the door for me, like, hey, Chisom, you're worthy. I know I'm worthy. And how do I take that space without permission? So, yeah.
Oh, that's so inspiring. And I think something that you said, I heard someone say the other day that, you know, we're all for diversity, equity, inclusion, but as long as they're qualified.
Yeah.
And I was like, do you notice there's like inherent bias in that statement? Because, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I think a lot of the discussions around equality has been myth-driven. It hasn't been data or fact-driven. And I think I see a change now, that there's a lot of different environments who are working on really good data. And I was reading a research coming from UN in March 8, 2020, and it was really interesting because it was looking at pervasive bias against women from all the world, both from men and women, right? And this research was kind of astonishing. It was 2020. And it's more than 80 countries that's part of this research. And one of the results is that 50% of the world's population who's been measured feel that men are better political leaders than women. They feel it. Secondly, when it comes to the business, 40% of the world's population in this research feels that men are better business executives than women. And if jobs are scarce, men should get them. So, you know, the whole equality issue, because I completely agree with your reasonement, because now we're like in a third, fourth degree of difficulties. And the Equality Project in Norway is really, really not old. It's quite new, you know, and even though in Norway there are different cultures that also has their kind of norms that they will follow. So it's not always only the laws that, yes, we can pass on laws, but how we act in the society, that is deeply rooted social control. So even I, as a white, blonde CEO, I'm telling you, that's hard shit in Norway too, you know? I also belong to minority, and I think that respect that I feel from being as a minority, I feel that dramaturgy for all of us. And I think from a gender side, we have so much more to do. And I agree so much with the women who said very strictly, you know, 10, 20 years before me, that women who doesn't support women, you know, they should go to hell or whatever. I kind of agree with that, you know? Because I think you don't have to like that woman. You don't have to. I don't have to like you to support you. I can recognize the situation that you're in, and I can support you. We have to stop that. I have to like you first, and then I can support you. No, and that I feel is changing with the new generations coming up. It's much more including.
Yes,
I think that's a positive thing.
If I may just quickly add, I think there's a lot of awareness, though, that is necessary because we only see the world as we are, right? So sometimes we have the best intentions, but then the impact of the things that we do can be exclusionary.
Yes.
I think to your point as well, like in recruitment, women are more likely to hire men and men are more likely to hire men. You know, so I think it's just, there's a lot of unlearning and unpacking that needs to happen, and also recognizing that, yes, we can look at our situations as women, but we also have a responsibility to look at the intersectional layers of our situations and go, what can we learn here? How can we raise awareness? And what can we do within the power that we have to actually shift the needle and support other women?
Yeah. Right. And I think the support is underestimated.
Absolutely.
I know in some companies in Norway, if you're part of a female network, I mean, I just talked to a group of them in the oil industry, and they said that just being part of this network is not good for my career.
Oh, wow.
You know?
Yeah.
That happens.
Yeah.
So,
No, and I think from what you're saying with like women supporting women, I think that was also, you know, when I was thinking about who am I going to write this book for, and it's really about, I want every woman to know, like, you're not alone. We're in this together. Because I, for the longest period of time, thought I was experiencing these things alone, and it was personal. Realizing it's not personal. And actually, when you go out and have lunch with all these other women, they're experiencing the same thing. So sometimes... And that's something, actually, a conditioning that I had to change that Rita really helped me with was, you know, when are you feeling threatened by these other women? And is this kind of shift in mindset that happens when you feel like there's only one space for women, moving from from a scarcity mindset to an abundance mindset. So I thought maybe you could talk a little bit more about that, like the work that you do with women and helping us uncondition these things that have been put in our head from when we were young girls.
Yeah. Oh, I love to talk about that. And actually love to talk about that in Norway. I have to say, I work with women, also men, because I need to keep my balance as well. But I work with women from all over the world, from Nigeria to Taiwan, to the US, to France, to the UK, everyone. And one of the things that I come to realize is that Norway is the worst country to work with. It's the worst country for me to work with because we as women have a tendency to think that everything is okay. We do not need women's network. That's like, oh, excuse me, that belongs to somebody else. But the matter of fact is, and I want to actually mention one specific point. And the point is around menopause, overgangsalder. If you had any idea of how many women in top positions of organizations, of whatever organizations, when we approach them, because we have a big work to do in the US and in the UK, and the minute we step in here and we talk about menopause and overgangsalder, it's like, it's not a problem here. No. It's not a problem. And we say, it's not a problem? No. It's okay, you know, it's okay. And I got to realize that we have a big problem in this country. We don't really talk about these things. So if we don't talk about it, if we can't see it, we can't be it. And 2 weeks ago, I was talking to a group of very senior women. The majority were an international audience, and there were 2 Norwegian women. And both of these 2 Norwegian women managed to say that it was not a problem, because they didn't have a problem. So they were not showing up for the others who actually said, you know what, I have a problem. I have a problem. So what I want to just talk about is that if we as women do not understand that because I don't feel it, it means that nobody else of the women feels it. Now we need to go in and check in with ourselves and say, what about open up a dialogue between each other, a safe space? And that's going back to why also in Norway, as in the US, as in everywhere in the world, it's so important to have a network of women. It's not that it's anything to do with men or anything to do with that. I believe men should do the same. Men also need to have safe space where they really go deep down, talk about mental health, what's going on. There's a lot of diversity there amongst men that we don't get access to. We have a responsibility on behalf of everyone and men. Because what we have seen is that when women are starting to move the needle, it's not because it's going to help all the women. It helps everyone. I was in a talk in another company, and a man, 66 years old, he stood up and he said, you know what, thank you so much for all the women in this company that have been fighting for flexible working hours, take kids to doctors, because I happen to be in an age where my parents are really sick. I need to take time off. And I can't claim it as sick days or this days or whatever it is. I need support. Thank you. So that is what we're doing as women. We're fighting for each other. I have also come to work with a company, Chevron in the US. What the women's organization managed to do is simply incredible. They managed to get communication on the agenda. The men and women started to communicate in such a profound manner that the men working in Chevron went back to their wives, and the wives said, what the heck is going on here? This is amazing. We're actually having a dialogue here. But it happened because it was a female, women-driven organization that said, this is the problem. That's why we need women. That's why we need to stand up. It's not because we're like weak or something. It's because we are the future. We need to drive things forward. So when women come to me, like Nada came to me, I'm like, get over yourself. Get out of your own way. You have a mind that is so important for the world to get access to that I'm not willing to allow you to sit there and feel sorry for yourself. Change companies, move around. The problem we have with women, many women coming to me is, I'm trying to do my best. I'm doing this and I'm doing that, and I'm going to change the culture of this company. Sometimes when you've done all that, it's time to leave. It's really time to leave. So that's what I want to say, that another point of women coming to me is they say, I've had enough. I say, what do you have enough of? I don't know, but I've just had enough. Okay, good starting point. And what I come to realize that is unique, because the majority of women that comes to me, of course men as well, but women in particular, they're a bit like late 30s, from let's say 36, 37, that's where it starts. And then it goes up to, I think, around 61, 62, 63. It's just this feeling of, I don't know, or I don't know. I feel overwhelmed. I'm all over the place. I thought I was a good leader. Something is happening. I'm not being heard. I said, congratulations. Wow. Because the fact is this, as women in particular, when we reach this age, it's almost like we have a lot of personalities in our head. But there are two in particular. One is our childhood story that has been protecting us, seriously. That has been pushing us to take the choices that is safe, but also pushy. Oh, go all in, risk everything. But it's still that young child who has an experience. Then we reach an age where the older, smarter, awesome, incredible woman has started to live a life that can look back and say, I did this and I did that and I created this and I said that. Why do you still have a 7-year-old as a CEO of this company? That's what's showing up. So they're called, you're a midlife crisis. Oh, you need to calm down. You need to do all these things. And they say, thank you, congratulations. The older self, the most powerful self, the future, the one that's going to carry your vision into this future has finally spoken. Let's pay attention to her. Let's listen to her and see what happens. And now things starts to change. Right?
Yeah. Woo. Wow. Yeah. And I think that's the kind of work that's been very transformative for me, is realizing that all these years I've been working in these very masculine environments and losing in touch with the feminine values. And realizing that in many of our workplaces, we don't place them in an equal pedestal. Yeah. Values of compassion, collaboration, communication, creativity, can we value them at equal to competition, our ability to analyze, especially in this new digital era where we're entering, and a lot of the analytical work will be taken care of by AI. But our ability to make decisions and seeing the impact of those decisions on the environment, on the society, and being able to see patterns, those are the things that machines are at least not yet able to do, and we need more of that. And I want to get back to you on that, actually, Liv Monica, if you have a rebuttal to that, because you also work in a very masculine environment, one of the few partners at a law firm. How do you lead and encourage the younger generation? And yeah, feel free to add to the conversation.
So, I think that a lot of women will benefit from compartmentalize. This is something which is usually seen as a bad thing. You need to be a whole person. But I believe strongly in compartmentalization. And that is to try to look at your work life as your work life. And you don't have a friend relationship to your employer or the company you work with. It is a transactional relationship. You give them your time, they give you money. Now, that, hopefully.
People find that funny.
I know, but it's actually that easy. That does not mean that you're not being personal and friendly and have emotional relationship to the actual individuals that you interact with, your colleagues, your boss, the owners even, the board, any stakeholder. You can have not necessarily I would advise against it. Private relationships, but personal relationships. So my most important emotional setting is in many ways my very warm, close business friends. There are people I work with that I'm very close to, but they're not my childhood friends, and I don't necessarily know the name of their dog. Okay? It's not necessarily that kind of relationship, but they're very close, they're very warm. But the employer or the company relationship, the contractual relationship between yourself as a service provider and a customer, it has to be service-minded. It has to be you have to meet the obligations of the contract, and ideally you overperform, but you don't go private. That means you're not disappointed, you're not hurt, you're not overwhelmed. You're looking at it, is this balance still right? Am I getting the right amount of money? Am I getting the right recognition in return for what I'm giving them? And very often the answer, as you indicated, is no. The balance is not where it should be. So the one thing, turning to your book, Nada, that I really like is the fact that you talk about money.
Yes.
It's so important to talk about money.
Yes.
It doesn't mean that we are money-grabbing or pecuniary-driven, because very few of us wake up in the morning and think about how much money we're going to make that day. We are driven by so many other things. But we have to, and I have to look at Tone, who am my mentor too, but as often is the case, you learn much more from the person you're mentoring than you're able to impart to them. She has told me, it's so important to value yourself. So that means that you have your own impression, your own idea about what you're worth, money-wise, plus, and then that's the truth about your market value. That's the truth. Now you can end up pricing yourself out of the market. I realize that. Then you have to reconsider. But most women don't even try to set their market price. They're just grateful that somebody thinks they're good enough for the job. And that's another personal feeling I want to dispel. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
And because I spoke about money because I thought I was also learning a lot from the new generation who's coming in, the Gen Zers, right? Because I feel like they're coming in a generation where everything is disrupted. They come to work in the pandemic. They can make money on YouTube and through social media. And they're coming and disrupting a lot of things for us. And I'm realizing here all my life, I came into the workforce during the financial crisis of 2008. And I was just happy to get whatever job I got. And then just working as hard as the company wanted me to work, whatever they wanted to pay me. But then realizing now after being inspired by the Gen Zers, and also after having worked for 15 years, that my goal isn't to work more to make more money. My goal is how can I work less and make more money? And that's what technology should be allowing us to do, right? And of course, I love my work and we love our work. But the phase of life where I am in, I want to be more present with my kids and I want to enjoy these moments because when I'm 70, what am I going to remember from this time?
Yeah. Yeah, I really want to share a story about that I think is really powerful because absolutely, I would say the majority of the women coming to me have a tendency of saying, well, it's not about the money, it's not about the money, it's not about the money. So, okay, let's see if it's not about the money. So I had this woman that she came into the position where she had headhunters literally all over the place. And we use her core values to check in which job is the right one for you. Forget the money, but let's check on the core value, your vision, your mission, your purpose that is driving you, and see where you end up. And then she ended up with 2 amazing jobs. And she was like, oh, how are we going to select it? And I said, what about the money? And she said, well, Rita, I've got the house, I got the car, I got what I need. Money doesn't really mean anything to me. And I say, all right, let's put that topic off the table first. Let's put it off. And let's talk about something else that is really meaningful for you. What's really meaningful to you? Oh, it was a project you had with children in I can't recall the country, but it was to give them the education. Then it was about women, to give clean, affordable energy to X number of whatever billion women in the world. And it was this and was that. And it was like, oh, whoa, 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 whoa. And I said, okay, tell me, how far is this salary going to take you? How far is your current salary? Because it obviously doesn't mean anything. Where do you want to go private? Where do you want to make sure that that company donate money to something that you believe in? And she said, oh my God, of course I want a higher salary. She doubled her salary. She already had a very good salary, both offers of these two companies. But she said, I'm not fighting for myself on this case, because she did have what she wanted. But she's, I am the reason, I am the facilitator for this company to do something good in this world, because I know exactly where the 50% more is going to go to. She got it. She got the dream job. And the 50% of the money she got, it's going specifically into her project. And she said to anyone, you fight for the money. You fight for the money. Money makes this world go around. Do not be a fool to think that we don't need money as long as I have whatever. No, money is as important as if you tell me and you're thirsty, you ask me for a glass of water. That is not being greedy. It's like, I need water. Okay, here you go. Money we need.
So that's I think established.
Period.
Yeah, thank you.
Go for money.
So I see the time is running out really short, but we're going to have some time for questions, but we're going to just have to say goodbye to the people who are joining us live. Thank you for joining. Hope you get a copy of your book. For today, for tonight only, it's 99 cents. So go get it, leave a review, get in touch, and thank you for joining. But now